Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Against the Public for January 2nd. Hope everybody had a profitable New Year's Day. Always good to get the new year off on a good start. I'm Dana Lane. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to go right back to the NBA for our free selection. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody, get over to Pickdawgz.com. I'll have 3 premium NBA plays locked and loaded. And of course, you can buy those individually or you can get them in a 3-pack. Now just $39.99. Every individual play, every 3-pack always comes with our Pick Dawgz win guarantee. And as I mentioned yesterday, the long-term packages, the season passes have all been prorated, so it's knocked it down in many cases over $100. So make sure that if you're kind of waiting for a little bit better price, get over to Pickdawgz.com right now. I think we have just about anything for everyone, whether you want a 7-day pass, a 30-day pass, you want an NBA pass, NHL pass, it's up there on Pickdawgz.com right now. Also, it's important to remind you that the annual all-access pass is now just $4.11 a day. That will give you every play that I release from now to this time next year. For one low price, comes out to be $4.11 a day. You get every play from every sport starting whenever you sign up. You could be starting tomorrow. So make sure 2025 is your best year ever, and the best way to do that is to jump on an annual all-access pass. Okay, here's your free play for Thursday. We're going to go to 7:30 Eastern time is the start. We have the Boston Celtics 24-9, 12-20 ATS, 15-16-1 to the under this year, headed to the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Take on the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are 17-15 this year, 13-19 ATS, 16-16 over under, so equal over and under records this year. So far, the consensus number has decreased just about a point in most places. Boston opened up -4.5. We're down to 3.5. Consensus number is at 20. Consensus total 221 was the opening number. Now we're sitting at 220.5. And then we know, if you follow the NBA at all, you know the Boston Celtics are coming off a massive victory against the Toronto Raptors, 125-71. The Raptors scored a season-low 71 points this year, while it was the second biggest victory in Boston Celtics franchise history by 54 points. So a massive win for the Boston Celtics, and that sometimes puts people in a bad predicament because, I mean, how, especially if you didn't watch the game, how do you take that kind of result and maybe go away from Boston, or how do you apply it to a total? Well, we're going to do that. And the one thing you knew right off the bat, now, yeah, well, let's see. I don't want the cart to come before the horse, but you could see easily to begin with, Boston played with a lot of confidence on defense. And defense is something that's been brought up quite a bit in the circles of the Boston media because not only the Celtics have been very, Joe Mazzulla will sit up there at press conferences and tell you, he'll rattle off statistics about, really, Boston isn't that bad defensively. You guys are making more out of it than it is. Well, that's very true, but most people are used to have the Celtics being an elite defensive team, like a top 5, not a top 10 like they are right now in many categories. So I think that's where some of the media is saying, well, hold on, I don't know if this team is as good as it has been in the past. Are they good enough to win another title? That remains to be seen. But against Toronto, they were absolutely fantastic. We saw a team that, for lack of a better way to say it, that bent their knees. They had their arms up. They were blocking passing lanes. They really were very active. And I kind of wonder, well, did they smell blood in the water because we know that the Raptors are a little bit short-handed? Or is this something we can expect from Boston moving forward? For me, one game does not take away from what I think the Boston Celtics are. Now, are they a good defensive team? Absolutely. But here's the problem. we're only looking at a number of 220. If we were looking at a number in the 230s, 240s, I would say, well, certainly Boston is, they look like they're playing better defensively. They look like they're playing with renewed confidence. That number's too high. But 220 is a manageable number to go over. And Joe Mazzulla will tell you, as he has in many press conferences, hey, we're about 10 to 15 plays on defense away from being elite. So that tells me, based upon about 100 possessions a game, about 85 to 90% of the time we're good. It's the other 10 to 15% that kind of get away from us. So I think we're dealing with a reasonable number here. I think Boston, if you watch it, should have been even better on offense than they were against Toronto, perhaps in the 130s and the 140 range, considering they managed just 45 points in that first half. They shot 2 of 12 in the first 6 minutes of that game. But you watch them and you were like, well, this is certainly a team that's not losing confidence, because they are absolutely shutting down Toronto. This is a team that looked like they knew it was a matter of time before this game was going to get out of hand. Nobody from the Boston Celtics starting five played in that fourth quarter, and we have to talk about the return of Drew Holiday to the lineup, which I think is going to help them become stronger and stronger. Missed those 3 games with that shoulder injury. Minnesota managed just 106 points in the loss against OKC, but shot 49% from the field, 40% from 3. They held a 12-point lead in that third quarter, but OKC absolutely cranked up the defense in that third quarter, and that was the difference. They easily came back from that 12-point deficit to get the victory. To me, in this game, and anybody who's watching Minnesota for any length of time, the problem with Minnesota is their lack of depth at the point guard, or even at the 1 or the 2. And this showed up in this game against OKC. Now, I think in most nights, you're not going to notice their lack of depth at point guard. But when they're playing a top 5 elite team, which the Boston Celtics overall are, these are the things that are going to be a problem for them as they move forward, when other teams are able to exploit their weaknesses. But we saw Mike Conley. We didn't see Mike Conley. We didn't see Anthony Edwards play at the end of that third quarter, which really hurt Minnesota. They didn't play they weren't there for 3 minutes, and at that point, that's when OKC really cranked up the defense, because they just knew Alexander Walker, Naz Reid, even collapsing on Julius Randle, they were not going to be able to able to overcome that defensive pressure, not without Edwards or Conley on the court. So in this game, I think we're going to see Boston be a little less aggressive. It's easy to be aggressive when you cannot be beat off the dribble, which they knew that they could not be beat against Toronto. I don't think they're going to feel that way against Minnesota. Minnesota's going to do a better job of making sure that they're not exposed at point guard or at the 2. So we're going to go over the 220.5 in this game, and I think it's going to be a very, very entertaining game, to say the least. But 220.5 is way too low for me, regardless of the 71 points that Toronto just scored. You have to really throw away that game, because there was a lot of factors that made Boston look better defensively than they actually were. So over 220.5 is your free play. Please go to pickdawgz.com, where every individual play and discounted long-term pass is locked in, loaded, including my NBA 3-pack and my discounted season pass in the NBA, NHL. I have a college bowl pass up there, NFL passes up there as well. And of course, that annual all-access pass is just $4.11 a day. I can't thank you enough for your time. I know there's a lot of options on YouTube that you could watch, but thank you so much to everybody who took the time to watch this video. All the best to you. Let's get another W. Thank you so much, by the way, to everybody who jumped on packages on the first day of the year. It doesn't go without being noticed, and I appreciate your trust. So for Against the Public, I'm Dana Lane. All the best to you and your wagers on Thursday.